like 15th August 1947. It was freedom.
September 6, 2018 was a historic day for India as the Supreme Court decriminalized homosexuality and gay sex by partially striking down Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. The colonial law criminalized even consensual gay sex, and the court has now ruled that the law was unconstitutional. It has been read down to now mean that only non-consensual gay sex and against minors as well as bestiality would be criminalized. This has been a long battle for the LGBT community. In 2009, the Delhi High Court held Section 377 to be unconstitutional and violative of Articles 14 pertaining to equality, Article 15 concerning prohibition from discrimination, and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution relating to life and liberty. In 2013, in a major setback, a two-judge bench of the Supreme Court reinstated Section 377 in a widely criticized judgment. Subsequently, a review petition filed in the case was dismissed. The only hope from then on was a curative petition. The Supreme Court, in a moment of introspection, passed the case to a constitution bench, and finally, on September 6th, in a complete reversal of the stand taken by the Apex Court in 2013, a five-judge bench unanimously decided that decriminalization was long overdue. Times Now spoke to the legal team that fought the case in the Supreme Court and made decriminalization a reality.
Once the decision was overturned, we filed reviews, we filed curatives. The curatives were pending for a year or so. We were thinking about, what could we do now? What could we do differently? And I think it made sense to file petitions for LGBT Indians to actually go to their court and say that this is how the law has impacted my life. And so we have these five wonderful, brave Indians who, despite in the shadow of Suresh Kumar Kaushal, in the shadow of a recently upheld Section 377 that criminalized them, were brave enough to go to their court and say, we would like our constitution back.
I think it was great. I mean, I think you rarely see a team like this. And, even within this case, I think we were probably the only team that was majority women. Sorry, Saurabh.
I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, but I will also say that, this was a wonderful professional experience for me, because we really pulled along together. Everyone had a very important role to play. Everyone knew that, and there was a lot of appreciation for each other's efforts, whether it was, getting the IIT petition in place, which happened in a really quick turnaround, or Neha managing Keshav's petition while she was abroad for a few weeks and getting it all done. So I think there was a lot of effort, and everyone had their own role to play, but it was amazing how we all pulled together and really everyone had their own efforts. I think a lot of appreciation for each other.
The NDA government did not take a stand on the issue of decriminalization and left the matter, as it stated in its affidavit, to the wisdom of the court. However, the centre did add a caveat that in the event that the Supreme Court wished to discuss the issue of LGBT rights beyond the ambit of decriminalization, it would want to file a detailed reply to present its stand.
And the moment I got to know that we won the case, I was all in tears, and suddenly I was quiet. I was so much at peace and so much at ease. I think all that hard work that we've put in to fight this battle had really yielded results. It was fantastic, fantastic feeling. I could just not stop crying. I went to the office, I had a big mithai ka dabba. I made sure I gave it to everyone and we celebrated like crazy.
What about you?
Well, I've been out to my family for a while and I've also been out to my workplace. It's been a very good judgment actually, and honestly we were very cautious about it, as we were the last time when it happened in the Supreme Court, we didn't have a positive judgment in our favor, so we were very with a lot of cautious optimism. We kept our fingers crossed. We waited till the judgment came out. We read through the whole fine print, and then once it's settling down, we're all celebrating.
I was extremely delighted and elated. In fact, apart from being part of Gay Bombay, I'm also one of the petitioners in the Supreme Court from the IIT student and alumni. So I also attended the Supreme Court hearings in July. And even at that time, we kind of felt that the bench and the judges were kind of in our favor from the observations they were making. So it was kind of expected that the verdict will come in our favor. But even then, the way the verdict was worded and the individual opinions that the judges spoke about the community and how 377 was a complete disgrace in a modern society. So it was, we were all ecstatic, and I was actually at home watching the verdict.
While decriminalization is a huge step in the march for complete equality, it is but a first step.
You know, there are lots of communities under this large umbrella called sexual minorities. So, for example, the transgender will have issues regarding inheritance, because the moment a person becomes trans, a trans woman, for example, a man becomes a male, cisgendered male becomes a trans woman, then they lose a lot of inheritance rights. They are driven out of their houses. That's all. So we'll have to fight for them first, because they're the most persecuted. Because tenancy laws, nominations, in the case of your lovers, all these now will become important, just not marriage. The similar things are like pensions. Who gets a pension? The pension, does it go to the same-sex spouse, or does it go to his children? Who spouse has looked after him? You know, so all these sort of things are going to now come up in a very serious way. People don't seem to. I find it very flippant. Marriage. What's marriage? Now, under which marriage act you come? The country has got so many person codes. So all these still have to be tested, and it's a long way off. And it's similar to the fight that took place in America.
It sort of, opened the way already for equality, when the judges themselves have turned around and said that, we need to recognize this community, we need to protect this community. There are constitutional rights that have to be accorded to every individual of this country. And I think that's pretty much where the judgment is going towards, and saying that, about constitutional morality and how the constitution is not dictated by majoritarianism. I think that the battle now is for us to actually mobilize together, is not just marriage equality, which is of course a battle that has to be achieved, but also equality for insurance, equality for inheritance, for equal citizenship.
See, I believe that what the Supreme Court did on the 6th of this month is very historical, and it's giving the basic constitutional rights and basic human rights to every Indian. Section 377 was not only for the transgenders or LGBTIQ community, it was for everybody. But after doing so, and it is much more associated because of those hypocritical religious people, it was much more associated with the LGBTI community, section 377. The stigma is very strong, and the political commitment being so low. After the judgment, I should have believed that the Prime Minister or the President of this country should have congratulated the community by one single tweet.
Coming up right after the break.
It's beautiful that we've seen this. Personally.
Everyone wants to ride on a positive wave, and I think it's going to do good.
we got engaged this year. And it was an amazing feeling. Especially it came out of nowhere. I mean, a day before we knew that the judgment is going to come out on Thursday. Was very nice, though full of anxiety and anxiousness. But I'm really happy that the 5-judge panel gave us a supportive verdict, and now we can live like we're not criminals.
Well, the journey has just started, I will say. There are so many things to happen, same-sex marriage legalization and more civil rights for LGBTQ couples. So yeah, it's just started and it's very exciting. I hope everything happens soon so that we get married. Now we are engaged, so we get married soon, and then we have our kids soon, and so on.
Cohabitation, marriage, adoption, equality in the truest sense is what the members of the LGBT community now aspire for, with the issue of decriminalization being addressed.
There are a lot of hurdles. It doesn't really mean that we have got societal acceptance all of a sudden. It also doesn't mean that we are suddenly very sensitized about LGBT rights. But it has opened the avenue for a lot of things. So the next step would be societal prejudice, which would mean that we need to get in anti-bullying laws, anti-discrimination laws at the workplace. So I think this would be the first step, where we start getting legislation for people who bully people, and to protect people and to also punish people who bully people. I think that's the next logical step. But after that, there are a lot of other things also, and we are not going to rest until we get complete rights as much as a heterosexual person gets. Whether it is property rights, whether it's marriage rights, whether we can call it civil partnership if need be, where we don't want to be defined by a certain religion or a certain marriage act or Hindu marriage act or a Muslim marriage act. All these are questions that are going to erupt.
Social prejudice was always there. In fact, when the 2013 judgment came out, there was a lot of discontentment, not just from people in the LGBT community, but in the youth as well. I think India has become a younger nation, and with that has come a lot of acceptance for a lot of ideas which were considered not okay. I think that the youth was already quite upset with the judgment that happened in 2013, and they were quite supportive of LGBT issues way back in 2013. So all the Supreme Court really has done is caught up to international standards and also expectations of what Indians are wanting.
Same-sex marriages are legal in 27 countries across the world. Having taken so long to achieve decriminalization here in India, it appears that legitimization is still a long way away. Hotelier Keshav Suri married his French partner in Paris earlier this year, but that marriage, while legal in France, is yet to be recognized here in India.
I would say that what Indian society are you talking about? Are you talking about the Indian society that was based by the Victorian morality of when this law was created? Or are you talking about the Indian society that gave Kama Sutra to the whole world? Are you talking about the Indian society that built those temples in Khajuraho? Are you talking about the Indian society that had Shikhandi as a goddess? Are you talking about our history books that supported LGBTQ gods, goddesses, had representation? So what are you, or are you talking about what was left to us by the British? Are we talking about that Indian society that is still under the post-colonial hangover? Well, the British got rid of it. I think that we need to, shrug off this, and we need to really understand what society are we, because we are also 1.3 billion people in the world. That didn't reach by just holding hands and, staring at each other. So, I think that it depends on, what side. And see, everyone has an opinion. Like I said, we're in a democratic country. People have opinions. They should have. As long as they are ready to also accept and hear that there are other opinions on the other side. And now, most importantly, the courts have said, in so many words, they've used the words hey, they're here, they're queer, get used to it.
It's not a hurdle. The government was extremely smart. You see, the point is, if marriage came in, under which marriage act will you go? There are 7 or 8 marriage acts. Under which marriage act do you want to get married under? Special Marriage Act doesn't recognize between a man and a man. The Special Marriages Act is a totally different act that is very modern, you know, which it's a uniform civil code which they're asking for is under the Special Marriages Act. But the Special Marriages Act doesn't accept same-sex marriage. You see, these things will have to be fought step by step. And I don't think it's extremely foolish to think that the government can give it to you. I am glad the government was out of the way. Nobody was with us. No political party was with us. The government wasn't with us. So the victory is ours, and ours alone. So we'll fight it.
I think adoption, we have already had quite a negative experience where the adoption law specifically says that same-sex couples cannot adopt, etc. So that has already happened. And with Parliament being against us, yes, that also has happened before. Shashi Tharoor in the past, in 2016, had tried to discuss Section 377 on 2 occasions, but he was not even allowed to introduce that bill in Parliament. So as such, we know where they stand. So we are going to go to the courts because that's where we have seen that things have changed. So we will petition with the court, we will go with the legal route first, and then we will go on to change political opinions.
Societal norms and prejudices, the notion that marriage can only be a union between a man and a woman, and the fact that many Indians who may favor decriminalization but may not necessarily support legitimization or same-sex marriage are all issues that will confront the LGBT community in its fight for complete equality. The Supreme Court had, in fact, in its judgment on September 6 this year, said that the idea of constitutional morality supersedes majoritarianism. That popular sentiment or a majoritarian view may not necessarily be consistent with constitutional morality that gives priority to fundamental rights of an individual. Those who went to court and won the legal battle for decriminalization are in no hurry to speculate about what may follow.
The whole question is whether this is a battle that is about to start anytime soon. As Neha said, I think one has to be reticent, slow, read the judgment, absorb it, see exactly what it says, and then chart out a course for the future. I think fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I would advise that we go with the utmost circumspection, rejoice with what we have, and plan for the future.
Certainly, I think, this case is about winning the legal battle, but I think the battle in the hearts and minds of people remains, right? Because social attitudes don't sort of change overnight. But I think the very big positive that has come out of this judgment is that the court has shown how you can actually make it happen. There are Justice Nariman talks about sensitizing the police, periodic publicity. Justice Chandrachud talks about how counsellors can make things better. So I think, and I think that, the interest that the media has shown and the fact that people are talking about this, I think all of this is just positive and shows that social change is, inevitable.
Well, I think for now we're literally basking in the glory of what we've achieved. It is definitely a landmark judgment. It's the individual has been held to be supreme by the Supreme Court, and I think it's time for this to settle in. Let us sort of get us settle down with what has really happened.
One can understand the need to be circumspect. The battle for decriminalization was a long, drawn-out fight that took almost 2 decades to win. And this victory included changing the mind of the Supreme Court as well, which had, in 2013, upheld Section 377. The victory came against the odds in a country where opinion on homosexuality and LGBT rights is deeply divided. So the progress in the march to complete equality would perhaps be incremental, in stages and in installments, and may take time to reach a complete conclusion. first and the biggest step, though, has been taken. And for the LGBT community in India, it is a time to savor, cherish and celebrate.
It's beautiful that we've seen this, personally. And I am just right now so ecstatic that in my lifetime I've seen such a beautiful.
Everyone wants to ride on a positive wave, and I think it's going to do good.
At least the generation coming won't live in the fear that they are criminal, which we lived.